It's been fun so far, and I hope I can, spike the interest in you guys as well to take up web development as a career. So, like before we start the session, like all of you guys in the chat, I want to know, do you have any questions even before we start? Like, why do we need Gatsby.js, or why are we even learning web development? So if you have any questions, like, we can take 2 minutes to answer even if before the session starts. Um, yeah, like Akshat, let me know if there's anything from the chat. Otherwise, we'll get started.
No, sir, I think we can start.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so with respect to web, it is a very fast-paced stream and a field. Frameworks that are there today might not exist like even in a year sometimes, and it is very difficult for a particular framework, whatever its place be in the in the ecosystem of your website. It's very difficult for it to sustain a long time. So if you see like UI revolutions, jQuery was the first UI revolution, and it changed the way web worked. A lot of people could build very interactive websites using jQuery. And then came like Angular, like the old version, Angular 1 and Angular 2, that enterprise companies, they liked Angular a lot because how they could build something scalable. Uh, when I say scalable in front end, it's going to be like how easy is it to make changes with the ever-changing customer requirements. And then came React. So React brought in a new approach, and that again revolutionized the entire front end system. And then there will be other frameworks. Vue is one, and then the recent one is like something like Svelte, and there will be many frameworks of such which have made a lot of impact. And I think it would take some time for them to move out of the ecosystem. So today, like we are going to look at Gatsby.js, and why specifically Gatsby.js is something I'll get into right now. If this was a React kind of a talk about React, then it would make sense, like, hey, I'm learning React. But there are like additional functionalities and like things that are already solved that frameworks like Gatsby bring. Like there are several alternatives as well. Something like you have Next.js, which you could say is like a direct, um, I won't say competitor, but it's an direct alternate, and that also has a lot of features built into that. You also have Nuxt.js. So Nuxt is predominantly for Vue, and you have a lot of content there and a lot of features there as well. And when I say features, I'll get into the features part, because we will go through Gatsby's features and see how it can be translated into each of the other frameworks that I just showed. So there are several options, but like Next and Gatsby, they are the most widely used. And today we'll look at Gatsby. I'll just leave that open just for a second. Okay. And one more thing that you should ask whenever you start a web project is, what am I going to use to build my project and to satisfy my customer requirements? And there's a lot of options like I just showed, and it is sometimes a bit difficult to evaluate, like how do I go about this? How do I choose the framework that would suit me? And one thing that I've learned is you no matter what features each framework gives, it's always good to see it from a developer perspective at some point, where you have to look for like good debugging. So how good can you debug if you face an issue with your framework? So that means you have to look at how mature the framework is in an ecosystem. Um, a good measure is usually how many GitHub stars that a project has. That has been like a more standard way of measuring how things work. You need good debugging tools within the framework, and you need to have a good ecosystem around the framework. So if you take React, you have like tons and thousands of libraries that you can use with React, which are made for React. It's not just a vanilla JS library. It's specifically made for React. And one such region where Gatsby also excels in is the ecosystem around it. It has a good plugin ecosystem where you can just import a library which is already Gatsby friendly and just start using it. We'll look at more of that in the talk today. And so if you take the 2 points, like summarizing those 2 points, you need to have like good debugging tools, and you need to have a good ecosystem around the framework that you're going to choose. Because like when you're in trouble, your code is in production and you have a bug, trust me, it is, these 2 points will save you more often than not than just using the latest and coolest features. So without further ado, let's jump right into Gatsby. I don't have any specific presentation prepared, so we are just going to try and be hands-on. And if we do face anything, a slight nag here and there, we are just going to Google our way through it. And because that's how, web development works. So let's get into Gatsby. We have, we'll, we'll go with the start the tutorial, and like, let's assume that we are, coming to this page for the first time. And you would see that like Gatsby has its tutorials, how-to guides, reference, and concept UI. This is what I'm talking about. So a lot of documentation, and they have ways for you to learn. The documentation is good. I'm not saying the others don't, but I like the way it is put here. And you also have how-to guides, how to go through this. This is the one we are going to step into today for running through some examples. And you also have references in their um, documentation specific to each category, and it is pretty exhaustive, I should say. And this is one more section that we should definitely look at, which is the conceptual guide. So the one thing that would separate all these other frameworks in general would be each framework is opinionated, and they have their own way of doing things. Although like the base of all these would be like, let's say for building, they're going to use Webpack, or in case of Nuxt.js, they're going to use Parcel. So those things are going to be the same. It's just that some frameworks would prefer, like, let's say Next.js or Nuxt.js, they might be more oriented towards a client-side rendering approach, where Gatsby is slightly server-side oriented. So those kind of change or differences in approach would segregate all these frameworks in general. So all the design decisions, right? So we will just try to set up um, our project first. So if you go into local development, and like we just go through overview, it says like how to create a new project from a starter. And so the first requisite is going to be using the Gatsby CLI. It's a pretty nifty tool. Like when I went through that. So we just have to do something like as simple as npm install -g install Gatsby CLI. You guys can, if you have not already not installed Gatsby CLI, we can take a second or two to install that. It installs pretty quickly as well. So once we install this, we have our Gatsby CLI ready. I already have mine installed. So if I type Gatsby, Yeah, so this is what it's going to give me. So I have like a bunch of options here. So develop, build, serve, info, clean, the whole lot. Okay, so let's take 30 seconds or even a minute to just install Gatsby CLI if you guys haven't already done. And then from there, we will look into how, like what else do we have to do finish the setup. Yeah, let's take a minute for that. And while you install, I'd just like to mention something nifty with the Gatsby CLI. So you have an option to say link to starter when you create your new project. So Gatsby new and your project name, and mentioning a link will allow you to fetch someone else's repo if they have a starter pack, the boilerplate code, and you can automatically pull that into your workspace. So you can have a starter pack from anywhere, and you can just put it there. So this is something I like about Gatsby, because when it comes to just React, you won't have something like this like off the bat with React, because React, the boilerplates are very opinionated. There's no specific ecosystem that the React community recognizes apart from the um, React Create App, if you say RCA, and only they have that setup, and everything else on top of that is going to be a lot. It's going to take a lot of time to set it up. But in Gatsby's ecosystem, you can just put a link from there. And when I say link, this is what I mean. So they have a starter library, and inside the starter library, you have all these options to start off with. Like let's start by like just clicking the starter blog for an example. Yeah, so it's a blog post and everything, and this is what I meant. So you just say Gatsby new starter blog, and you give this URL. You're just gonna get this setup, whatever is inside that, into your code base, and you have a neat definition and like descriptions of features and dependencies that you're going to pull in. So it says like basic setup for a full featured blog, RS feed, and so on and so forth. So plenty of things around there, and the dependencies you're going to bring in like all the way up to Prettier. Like Prettier is like just a text editor formatting specification, and they're even mentioning that. So this is something very nifty, and I actually liked it when I first came across Gatsby. Okay, I hope you guys install Gatsby CLI. Um, if you had any trouble with that, like if you don't have npm installed, maybe you should install npm and get through it. Yeah, Akshay, do let me know if there's anything in the chat regarding just the initial setup steps. We can take a couple of minutes post the initial package setup to clarify if there's any. And yeah, let's move on to the next step. So all we are going to do now is we are going to run our first Gatsby CLI command, which is going to be just Gatsby new. So what this command will do is it's just going to give us right at the bottom. It's just it's saying what would you like to call your site. So I'm just going to name it what the web. So the CLI is what it's going to do is it's going to take you through a bunch of options for you to do your boilerplate. And the options, they're mentioned specified in the documentation as well, so that you don't feel completely taken aback when you see it for the first time. So when I run Gatsby new without giving my folder name, starter folder name, without giving my link to a starter pack, this is what you're going to get. And today, just for like for simplicity, I'm just going to maintain and also like feeling like we are adding something new as we move forward, I'm just going to create a Gatsby new project. We are not going to use any external URL, and not specifying the folder name actually gives you all these options. And let's go through each of the options, and we'll do it in the terminal as well. So first, it would ask for your a project name. You can just specify whatever name you like. I've named it What the Web so far. Then second option is, will you be using a CMS? Today we won't use any, but if you are building a website for one of like WordPress or Shopify or anything of that for your projects, you can always choose that. Gives a lot of tons of features and nice interfacing with those CMS systems, content management systems, and it makes it really easy for you to develop there. So the third option you have is the styling system, which this is something we will get into deep into this when we go through the rest of the features that Gatsby offers. And we are going to probably choose style components today. They're very neat, and personally, I have found them useful in some of my projects. So we're going to give that a try. Style components can also be termed as CSS and JS, which we'll get into again later. And the last step that we have is, do you want to install additional features with other plugins? Um, they're all good plugins like the Google Analytics tracking script, responsive images. You have page meta tags with React Element. React Element is a very useful library. It helps you handle everything that goes inside your head tag of your HTML. So it's very useful. Then you have like an automatic sitemap. If you find use for that, you can always do that. Enabling offline functionality. This is nothing but PWA, and what this would essentially, I think generating a manifest file and offline functionality are going to be progressive web app related. PWA, it would let you spin up service workers. If you have come across service workers before, they're like just asynchronous background task handlers, and you can spin up a service worker per page, and it helps you remove some load of the main thread of your website. And so those two options will allow you to enable something like that in your website if you have a specific use case for it. The next option would be like Markdown support and Markdown and MDX. MDX is just like JSX, and Markdown support, like Markdown is just going to be formatting without actually formatting it. But today we won't use any of the plugins to keep it like to declutter our project. We won't have any of this. We can touch upon offline functionality a bit if time permits, but for now we're just going to skip all of that. So let's just quickly set up our project. We have to enter a project name. So I'm entering What the Web, and it's asking, would you like to name the folder the same? I'm just going to hit enter so that it names the same. And for the CMS, I'm just going to say no, like I mentioned before. We're not going to use any of that. And it's pretty interactive as well. I can use my down arrows to hit my options, which is cool. And then, yeah, we're going to use style components. You might have come across like SAS is like, I would say, I don't want to go to the full form and all that. It's just going to be like a conditional or a more programmatic way of writing CSS. I can say a variable name saying color blue, and I can give it a hex code, and I can use it everywhere in my CSS, and it's going to be like so going to be drop-in value for color blue in all the places that I mention it. It's very useful when you have like a theme or something going on for your website, and if you ever want to like suddenly, let's say in your project you want to make your website more Christmassy, and you want to add like reds and greens and everywhere, it'll be useful if you have like a SAS kind of a setup. again, it's a subjective thing. Then there's style components. That's what we are going to choose today. We have emotion, post CSS, and theme UI. Emotion is another popular UI toolkit, and it is pretty famous as well, along with the likes of, I think, Material UI. Emotion is one of them, and I think you have Stencil and a few others. All of them, and like of course Bootstrap. So all of them, it's there in that league. Like there's one more like Ant Design and more UI toolkits. So we're going to go with style components. We hit enter, and you have all these options. Like I said, we're not going to choose any of them. We're just going to hit done, and it will just confirm with us saying, do you want to create a project in a folder named what the web, and just use style components. And it's going to hit enter again, and it will start creating our website. So while it creates that, I already have another folder, so I'll be anyway starting my code from there. But these are the steps involved in just setting up a Gatsby CLI. Any other website, literally framework out there, as similar CLIs, and the front end as a whole ecosystem has come to a point where it's very easy to set up your boilerplate code without like really worrying about, am I doing my setup right, or you going into a webpack hell where you do something and then you're like, there's an error, you Google it, and then like you should not be using this version of webpack, or you should not be using this version of the plugin because they're incompatible. You try this, and then when you go change that, it again triggers one more version mismatch or something like that. All that is avoided. Um, you would see how simple it is to actually start running a website. So if you look at it, that's all. Like you have your base boilerplate setup. Um, I already have this setup running. All you have to do at this point is just run npm run develop. And once you run npm run develop, you're going to get into something, a bunch of command outputs. It's going to say success, 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 and then in the end, it's going to say localhost 8000. That's where your Gatsby project is working. And it also talks about GraphQL. So Gatsby is powered by GraphQL for the entire part. We will try to make use of GraphQL a bit in today's talk, uh, but since it's like we are not going to go in depth about GraphQL because that's a completely separate topic to talk about. But we will be using GraphQL today in our talk, and also explain how to use GraphQL with ease within our project. So that's the setup, guys. Like once you get it up and running, you can just hit local 80,000 in your browser, and if you hit it, this is what you're gonna be greeted with. You're gonna have congratulations, you just made a Gatsby website, and it's as simple as this. And it comes all the way here. And if I open up the code for this guy, so it says source pages index.js. Okay, and there you go. The code for that page is actually here. So the entire JSX React JSX for this is in this file. And I think from here we can start editing to check out how Gatsby works. So let's take like a couple of minutes to close out our setup. So everybody reaches this point. You have your Gatsby localhost up and running, and from there we can now start going through Gatsby concepts, see how these concepts are transferable to any other framework that you ever learn in the future, and then we will see what specific features that Gatsby offers and how we can make use of them, and go through some nifty items there. So let's take a couple of minutes for you guys to set it up. Like leave a message in the chat if you're done, so that we will know and we can start moving forward with the other concepts that Gatsby has.
By the time I'll take a question, sir. Some
Yeah, sure.
people are asking that uh, is Gatsby similar to Next.js,
Yeah, it
and
is.
what's the difference?
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. That's definitely a question to look forward to. So, in my opinion, I would definitely feel Gatsby and Next.js are similar, because like they both help you um, do the same what we did. So it is like you have the same concept of pages and routing, um, kind of more similar. But like I said, um, the difference would be between what kind of approach that each framework would have, like, take in general. So they are similar in terms of, let's say, if you take pages, right? It Next.js has, like, it generates the HTML at build time. So does Gatsby. So like they both of them form the same way, but server side rendering is also kind of separated. Sorry, Next.js has an option to do server side rendering as well. And if you take data fetching, it does not opinionate that using GraphQL is a mandatory thing to go, whereas Gatsby GraphQL is baked in. So that is one difference that you would have if you go with data fetching aspect. With respect to CSS, uh, you can always add style components. Style components are a separate library by itself, so you don't have to think like, hey, can't I not use this in Next.js? Why? Style components is a library by itself. You can definitely use it in Next.js. Nothing stopping you. But with them, they have kind of a, you could say, a tie-up with Tailwind, and Tailwind is again another UI toolkit that you have. But if you see the basic features, and this is what I'm going to cover next, that whatever you learn in Gatsby.js, if you go into a company next and they are using Next.js as their choice of framework for their website, there won't be much of a learning to do there. So you would be like, oh, okay, so you guys are using Next.js. Okay, so that means you would have like all the image optimization techniques that both platforms offer. You're going to have definitely a pre-built HTML going on. You're going to have routing is going to be in this format. If you take routing in Next.js, it's going to be in this way. So the router will automatically start an index, and then from there it's going to be, again, this is similar to how Gatsby is working or Nuxt is going to work, where if you put a file inside your pages folder in your project structure, it will automatically treat it as a route. So again, these are the similarities that you have between the two. So if you learn Gatsby, even if you start your learning by Next.js, so if this was a talk about Next.js, tomorrow you can wake up and you can learn Gatsby, like, let's say, less under 30 minutes. It's not you're not going to face any difficulty in terms of the learning part. But when difficult, the change would be in the way each framework behaves after a point. um, if you say the, like, something like, the advanced features in Next.js, you're not I don't think you would have sufficient AMP support in Next.js or some sorry in Gatsby or something like that. So I don't think I'm not sure whether I answered your question much, but to summarize what I said, all these frameworks are very similar to each other. Some are very opinionated. Gatsby, for example, is kind of has GraphQL and React baked in, whereas with Next.js, you might have the option to use one or more frameworks. With something like Nuxt, which I mentioned earlier, it is view specific. It does have some React support, but it's not the same. And if you see Nuxt as well, right, it is going to have the same kind of features that we are looking at currently. So it is going to talk about server-side rendering. It's going to talk about static site generation, which we just spoke about, where you generate a static HTML and serve it. And it's also going to talk about pages again, where whatever file you keep inside the pages folder, it's going to create a new route. So these kind of things are very similar. So that's why I said all these things that you would like, if you go through any of these documentations, it's going to be easily transferable across any number of modern frameworks that you're going to face. Um, Once I go through each Gatsby item, I'll tell you, like, you can see how all of them are common. If you want, you can always have both Next and if you prefer Nuxt as well. Just you can keep all of these tabs open in your browser, and as we go through each Gatsby concept, you can take 30 seconds to see whether you can find the same in Next and Nuxt. 9 out of 10 times you're going to find it. You won't feel any change in it. Sometimes the behavior will be the same. Sometimes you would feel like there's a slight change. The framework doesn't support this because they have taken a trade-off and said, I'm going to take only one certain direction. Yeah, I hope I answered your question in some parts. Okay. So Akshat, like, is there anything in the chat about good to like us being good to go? We can like, if there's any other question, we can take that. Otherwise, we can start with.
No, no, sir, we can move forward.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I like, let's hope like everyone's on this local host till now, and let's go through everything in how to guides within Gatsby, and we will try to understand what Gatsby has to offer in general, and then we will try to see, like I said earlier, we'll try to correlate a bit with other frameworks and understand how we can scale these understandings into any other project that you would take up next in your career. Okay, we can just go through all the headings here, just like quickly run through if you any of them of use. So using an environment variable, if you are familiar with Node.js setups, which which is kind of ancient at this point, but so Node.js would allow you to like set an environment variable while running it, where you can set up production or dev. Is it a developer website or a production website? And based on that, you would have your compilation systems or build systems to behave in certain ways. Today we won't be using it today, but this is useful when you are deploying something to a server, and let's say you have some configuration items that you don't want to push to GitHub, um, but it should be part of your continuous integration and continuous deployment systems. You can have it in your .env. So if you have like alpha, beta, gamma stage to your project, it need not be just in terms of code branches. It can be env files, and you can specify configurations for those. So the configurations usually could have like database URLs, hopefully not credentials, but database URLs. Then you could have the URLs of your website. So it can be like, alpha-mygatsbywebsite.com, and then beta, gamma, so and so. So those kind of things that usually go into env files. For client-side JavaScript, it can be like embedding these URLs in a client side. So based on what environment it is running, whether it's development or production, it can pick up those URLs and use them, so you don't accidentally hit the production environment via your beta local development setup. So that's what environment variable would be. And then you have troubleshooting things. I don't think I will go through this much. Uh, it talks about um, like if you have issues with your Gatsby cache and everything, uh, we can go through this like at our own pace. But I don't think it is specifically necessary. It is very specific to using certain um, frameworks that within Gatsby, like Emotion and so on and so forth. So we won't deal with that. If we do run into a problem, we can always come back here and see if our problem's here, or Google our way through. That should be fine. Additional guides, again, it's all like if you want to go through it, you can go through it at your own pace. It talks about Windows and certificates, which we won't handle now, since our development is going to be entirely local. Okay, the first interesting aspect that we're going to start would be routing. So for any client-side application, routing is a major thing to handle. It is also like how your app is structured. That's going to be very important for us. So as of now, if we go to our Gatsby project, this is what we have from a starter. So you have a package JSON, just standard with npm packages. You have a Gatsby config file, which we will come back to. This is a very useful file, and uh, I'll tell you like what this will do. If you haven't worked with Gatsby, this is a very special file specific to Gatsby and how it handles its ecosystem. This could be one difference you could say between Next and other frameworks as well. But we'll have it here, and you have an index file which has the code that we looked at here, like the HTML file. You have this pages folder, which inside which the index is there, and you have the images which is there, which is we are going to use. So the pages is quite special because whatever JavaScript file that you declare here is going to create a route automatically. Um, this particular thing is very specific to modern frameworks, Next, Nuxt, Jekyll, or anything else. All of them would kind of have the same pattern. Previously, it used to be like you specify, if you take just React, you would have to do a React router. You have to define a React router path. So if I can quickly um, open up React routers page, it'll be like obvious what we are checking at. So if you see with just React, you have this big router kind of a thing that you have to do, and you have to mention what routes you're going to go through. So this kind of routing is not for everybody. If you're going to have a website where you need to have a lot of logic that goes around your routing, maybe something like this is for you. But um, what if I'm just like, I want to write a blog, I want to develop my own blog so that I can have control over how it looks and what kind of features it should have. It is very easy for me because it's going to be just a static website. Let's say it's not going to have too much of server content or anything. It's just going to be like deployed into WordPress or something like that. You just have an option to create a file inside pages, and that would form a route. So I'll show you how it is done. Um, but before that, we'll just go through the rest of the content. So it says how to create pages in Gatsby. Yeah, this is funny. It says coming soon, but let's go to the routing references guide. Yeah. So the first thing that it says is creating routes, and you creating React components inside source pages. You just uh, create a route. That's it. So if you create contact.js inside pages, you just have a route saying contact. And I think pretty sure you also have the option of creating. Okay, I think it's in a different page. I think you also have the option of creating a React router kind of a route. I think it's somewhere buried in the document. When I was going through it, I think it was there. So Gatsby allows you to declare this kind of a structure if you prefer to, or you can use the uh, routing mechanism, which is this, where even your nested routes you can always do. So if you're building like a slightly large UI based static website, you can do like, so you can say about us, and then you can say CEO, a CEO or something, and you can have them all as different web pages. So you can always do something like that. Um, so if you like take 30 seconds to see through the other frameworks documentation, you're going to see something similar as well, like just how we saw that. So files inside the pages uh, can be used to define the most common patterns. So it's the same as what we saw in Gatsby, where you say pages index and slash, and you mention a file inside the folder, it automatically takes you there. Same with Nuxt. Let's, if you say click start at concepts, um, hoping it's into features, even directory structure features maybe. Yeah, yeah, it's somewhere. Yeah, routing. See, routing, you have automatic routes, and again they talk about like view router being there, and based on files you provide inside the pages directory, it's just going to take up, and that means you never have to write a router config again. So like, that's cool, right? Like, you just put a file, you just go about your development naturally. There's no headache burden of defining routes in a separate page, and tomorrow when you come add a new route in a project that has been there for 2 years, you don't have to find and sit through all the different configurations you have for your routing. So if you have a small project, you might not see the problem that would come up uh, with just, you could be like, what the hell is there with routing? It's a simple thing. Why do you have to make a fuss out of it? But if you have worked with a slightly larger project where a lot of configurations and business logic is there around the routing itself, this kind of routing makes it really, really simple and less of a headache. So I go to pages, I see, oh, okay, so these are all the pages that my website can hit, and everything is outside of this are just components used inside the page. It's as simple as that. So that's about routing here in Gatsby. Outside of this routing guide, we won't need much, at least for today's talk, and also in general, you won't need like, if you have certain use cases like using authorization for a certain route, Gatsby obviously provides support for that. It was like, I'm pretty sure it's right there in the documentation. I think even additional guy, yeah, see, create an authenticated client only route. We can go through that once we just complete this part about the routes. And there are more items, like if you have to do pass an ID or something in your route based on a click or something, Gatsby definitely supports that, and it's kind of standard across other frameworks as well. So before we move on to styling or something like that, let's create a file inside pages. I'm just going to create a file quickly. I'm just going to call it, I'm going to call it test.js. Okay. I'm just going to call it test.js, and I'm also going to just clean up everything we have inside our index file, so that whatever examples we run through next, it's a bit easy on the eyes and to understand. I'm going to delete all of that. Yeah, and let's make it more festive. Okay, and this all going to be like for most of the Gatsby, working with Gatsby, it's going to be more of React, writing React code. So it will be like if you already know React, you'll be in much more familiar territory. And we're just going to say hello world, like we always do when we start something new. And you already have the auto reloading option set up. So every time you make a change, it's going to rebuild your development bundle, and you're going to see the change here. So that's pretty standard across all the UI frameworks. Saves you the time of not having to sit through and reload every time. So once you create, so we can just simply copy paste this guy here and create a test page. I'm just going to rename it to test page and hello world from test page. And if I hit test in my browser, there you go. You already have a route handled in your client side, which says hello world from test page. And that's all it is there to add a route to your Gatsby project. So you just create a file inside pages. It can be like just a normal React component, and whatever content you put up shows up here. That's it. No additional configuration needed. And you can start developing your website, like your new route directly from there. If so this is the client side routing part, and if you want to add, let's say, hyperlink, so your home page, like usually traditionally it's going to be a navigation bar with hyperlinks to other pages. In that case, we have the option of linking, obviously linking between one page to another. And if I search for link within, yeah, linking between pages, let's just click that. You have something. So this is not just specific to Gatsby. Any modern framework, React router, Vue router, there's one more router called Reach, which Gatsby uses. All of them will have this link component. So traditionally, our links are going to be like a anchor tag. So if I have to go to my test page, this is something I'm going to do. This is what I'll do. So I will say, let's leave it here. So I'm just going to say href/test, and hyperlink is test. So if I click this, it's going to refresh the entire page because it's a completely new hyperlink, and it doesn't do a client side routing. So it's not like if you're familiar with single page applications is like your entire site loads once and nothing else loads again. Everything is content is going to come dynamically either from your server or from your wherever your UI is hosted, and there's no refreshing of the page again. Everything is going to load asynchronously. Those are the kinds of website that is traditionally being built now, and it's a good way to build websites because bandwidth is very important and performance is very important. Both of that matters to the end customer. So if your customer is going to be using a mobile device on 2G, if you're going to keep refreshing your pages every single time you make an interaction, it's going to be a very painful experience. So that's why SPA, single page applications, have been in the front-end ecosystem for quite a while. And with hyperlink written this way, it's going to refresh the page. What something like Gatsby or any other routing frameworks would offer is something like a link. So if you see what I imported, like my ID imported is like import link from Gatsby. And if you're familiar with React, just a small diversion here. If you write your import statement this way, it's going to be a named import. So you're only getting the link component from Gatsby. So if I write something like this, technically all of Gatsby is represented by this variable. I might as well name it Gatsby. So import Gatsby from Gatsby would mean I can access all of Gatsby's exported methods with this variable. Whereas if I import it this way, I'm just importing one specific variable, link, from Gatsby, and you won't be importing the entire framework's code into your local. This really helps us because when you build something into your production bundle, you don't want redundant code to go in there, especially unused dead code. And tree shaking and other few nifty things in Webpack can help us get rid of this. But in case it doesn't work, so in case the dependency that you have is not compatible with the Webpack version you are using, it might end up that there's some unnecessarily imported dependency from your libraries that are there in a final production JS bundle. So importing this way is kind of optimal. That's what I'm trying to say. So we will import link. Let's go back to the documentation. So you have link, and this is how you define it. So link, you have a to option which says which path you have to go to and what is the text you have to display on your DOM. Let's take this and just simply put it here. Yep, and we'll call it test, and we'll call it test here as well. We'll leave test with link router, so we can see the difference. Yep, yeah. Now it will compile. Okay. So if you click test, your browser is going to take a small reload and it's going to serve the page completely. But if we click something like test with link router, the transition is going to be immediate and it's a client side only routing. So you go from one route to another without reloading the page, and whatever code that you write here will start to take effect, and from there it's all going to be like React lifecycle based things that are going to happen, and whatever you mention in your component is going to get rendered. So it's a very small nifty thing within the router, and yeah, it's common across other frameworks, as I already said. So you have that option. So I think that's pretty much with routes. Everything else is kind of it's going slightly deep into routing or all this in general. So we would that's all about routing that we are going to look at now. Next thing that we will look at is styling. Gatsby, it has allows you to do different things. It's not that opinionated when it comes to styling. So you have an option to write your standard CSS, where you just have a CSS folder if you like to, or you can do it in this structure as well, where you say you have your layout.js and your layout CSS file all in one go. So if I can create a new folder component. So if I want to use something in my test, so I can create a new file. I can call it like test or test component. And I can write all my React code here. And I can just say a new file where I say test component.css, and I can do all my CSS here. And you would essentially import your CSS here, and that's like it's more like a traditional way of developing. It's not today. It's not how we do it today. Nothing wrong with that approach. Subjective, as I said earlier. You can, if you wish to use it, you can definitely use it. If you're more comfortable, or if your project already is using that, you are like, you can always use it. It's flexible and it's predictable as well. If you come from a very traditional web development background, if you came from like somewhere between the jQuery and the Bootstrap you started learning from jQuery Bootstrap timeline, you might be more favoring towards this. You might not be comfortable with how the newer frameworks try to handle CSS in general. I'll just delete the folder for now. We don't want that there. The other way is CSS module. This is more a React kind of a, like you would see this kind of a CSS module thing in a lot of React projects, where you would specify your CSS in like in a file name saying component, whatever the component name is .module.css. This is again a standard way of doing styling, and you would just import your styles like this. While you say class container styles, you would import it this way, and you would say container styles container. So whatever margin or max width anything is there, you're going to just use it inside using the class name, and those styles get set. This is again is a very standard way of doing it. It's easy to do this as well. So this is a more easier transition path if you like the traditional way of defining CSS. This is more easier to follow for you as a immediate step, post which you can have consider other types of writing CSS as well, which takes us to CSS in JavaScript, which is kind of what we would have a look. I think I already spoke about Sass, like how I said, like you can specify a variable name and use it everywhere in your CSS. Tailwind and Emotion are like UI toolkits. You can have a look at their docs separately if you like. Same goes with Emotion. They're both like CSS and JS libraries. You can always have a look at them. They're quite fun to use, and they're being used across like several projects. So if you like their UI design philosophy and the colors and schemes that they use and the features that their UI toolkit items provide, you can always have a look at that. Today we're going to keep it simple. We will just use a standard CSS in JS library, style components, which I spoke about earlier. Style components, the syntax, if you have not used it before, might feel slightly weird. This is not what you would see in a JSX file or HTML for that matter. This is how you would this is how you would have your styling specified in a style component page. We can try now to do the same with something in our homepage. We'll try to just create a normal coloring or something like that here with style components, so you have an idea of how it is used within our within the project that we have. Style components has its own uses. It does allow for more verbose nature of development, and also somewhere I feel it has a lot of reusability within it as well. I feel it's a good thing to have. You can have the same happen with Sass or even just like module-based CSS. It's not difficult to achieve that there, but here it is more verbose. And when I say verbose, this is what I mean. Let's say you have a container, you specify something called container, and following the syntax that we saw earlier in style components here, so it says styled dot something. So in our case, we're going to say styled, and I just hit enter, and I'm just going to import styled from styled components, and we are going to do dot div, and we use the like inverted commas. That's like right under your escape key or near a numerix. You'd also use it for string literals. I can say now I can start writing my usual CSS. So it's going to be margin 0 auto. I can say width is just 480 pixels, something like that. And I can say background is red. Okay, maybe not red. We can just do yellow if you like. And well, you won't find any difference yet because we are not using this here, but this is how you would define a style component in general. There are a lot of additional items you can do with style components where you can pass parameters here, like you can pass props and use those props inside. So this is the case where you have to pass something like conditionally, based on whether or not a user should be seeing some style. So you can do all that with style components pretty easily. It shouldn't be that big a problem. So we take a container and we just add it here, and we say hello world inside this, and we will remove this guy. Let me just put one more. I'm gonna say for this, we're gonna say page header. I'm gonna do the same for this. We'll keep it just to stick to just colors, so that we have an idea. I'll give it a width as well. And we will repeat that for just one more, saying page footer. Say green, okay, and that's it. We're going to say header here, and we're going to say footer here. So this is what I meant by verbose. So if you take a look, like any day, anytime in a project, you come to a page like this, you look at your render or return method in case of this, and all you can immediately see based on the component names used, and like, oh, there's a container, there's a page header, and there's a page footer. Okay, cool. So these are all the things that are going on within that. This is what the page contains. So if there's an issue with the layout, these are the components that you have to go look at. You could do the same with just naming your React components this way, or naming any component that you write this way. But this is you can do it just with styling. Like if you don't have much to do with React as such, it's going to be a static thing, or you want to have a lot of styling based components which you really don't want to pertain, like put it into a React component to give the styles so that you can reuse the component better. This kind of a verbose development makes it very easy to track and make the readability better as well. So you can really look at this file and be like, oh, okay, so this is quite easy to go through and read through and all that. And we will just visit the file, and you can see. Maybe I should change the color for this. Yeah, I can change the color. Yeah, I'll make it pink. That's going to be bad. Oh, it's better. Okay, we will make. We'll just make one more section, just to. Yeah, we'll just call it page, and we'll call it aqua. We'll just wrap this guy around that. Okay. Oh, did I change anything wrong? Okay, I think my CSS is taking a hit. That's fine. We won't deal with this layout anyway. We're just gonna get rid of it. But you get the point. So this is how like style components work. So we're gonna just have a small look at images, and after that, I think we'll probably take a break. Once we move on to the next part of what we're going to build. So images, you're going to have like your traditional normal image, always going to have that. But what we interest us today is going to be how to use a Gatsby image. So Gatsby has this image component which allows you to do a lot of things that would be kind of difficult to do it by ourselves. And even if we do it by ourselves, it's going to be like reinventing the wheel. So what does Gatsby image do? So this is the problem statement. So you have a website, you have like large images that you want to load into your website. And when you load large images in your website, it's going to slow down your website, uh, especially around the rendering part. So in every website, you have something called a critical path. A critical path will be one where it is going to block the main thread which renders your page, and you should make sure your critical path of the page loading is not blocked by such calls. So making a call to a huge JavaScript file, huge CSS file, or trying to load a huge image like this, like in this scenario, is going to delay how fast your website loads. So that is one of the main problems that Gatsby image solves. Along with that, it's going to allow us to do like a blurring of the image. It's going to allow us to put a placeholder there, and it uses all these features, and it's within the Gatsby ecosystem. So you don't have to go to Google and search how do I create, how do I lazy load images, if you want to say. That's a like a very traditional concept in web designing, lazy loading, infinite scrolling, and you need not search how do I lazy load a Gatsby image, right? It's all there out of the box. You just have to like install the library and the Gatsby from the Gatsby ecosystem. You put that image and you start loading the image. So this is the part which we will get into next in the next section, which we are going to do. So we're going to use Gatsby image, and we're going to try and build something simple, not too fancy, but at the same time try to touch base with whatever we learned so far, and also just to like feel like what Gatsby has to offer. And once we build it, I hope like you have a slight understanding of how easy to get it into Gatsby is, and how quickly you put up something within an hour without writing much code, and how the Gatsby ecosystem is useful. And post that, if time permits, we can go into the testing and performance aspects of Gatsby, if possible hands-on, or at least like in a more slightly theory way, and theory part and hands-on a half, so we can try that. So what I'm planning for us to do is try to build a mini Instagram feed. When I say, yeah, something similar to this, or you could, I'm trying to find a better image. Let me try to find a better image. A lot of images. We'll try to, yeah, something like this. Let's say this one, right? We will try to build an Instagram feed like this, like the one we have here. Um, we could like have placeholders for our stories. We'll try to build this layout specifically, as much as we can, and we will try to fetch data from Instagram's service, including like the photo, the caption, number of likes, and that is we are going to do it through GraphQL. Fetch that, and then display it on the page, and just we'll write some small stylings, CSS, to get a similar layout like this, so that we touch different aspects of what we went through so far all in one go. So we won't focus much on the functionalities like, if I click the heart icon, is it going to fill up? Is it going to make a? We won't get into those details much, because those are all going to be React specific. The click event is again going to do something React would do. It not necessarily not going to do anything with GraphQL as such. So that's what we are going to try to do. So we will take probably a 5-minute break, if that's okay. And then once we come back, we are going to start from the same project wherever I left off. We are going to start trying to build something like this. We'll go through what dependencies we need that we need to add additionally, and how to invoke the GraphQL API that Instagram has, and how to, like, load the profile inside the code, and how to access the variables there and everything. And we'll try to do justice to this by trying to style it as much as we can. Okay, so yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back. Akshat, if there's any questions in the chat so far, we can take it, or else we can just take a 5-minute break now. Akshat, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. So can we take a 5 minutes break if there's no questions in the chat?
Yes, we can take a break.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, let's connect back by like probably 5:25 max, and we can start off with this guy. Yeah, I'm shutting the stream for now. Okay, we are back. If there was any questions in the chat, Akshat, if there's anything, you can let me know. I'll just get the next item set and ready, and we can move forward. Okay, hoping there are no questions in the chat. We are going to start with installing Gatsby image. So because that's what we are going to need to first even fetch data from Instagram specifically. So if we come to this page in Gatsby's docs using Gatsby image, you have this npm command. So it's right under adding images and media, and there's a third link there. Install npm install Gatsby, and you also have like three other libraries that you're installing. I can quickly walk through that as well. So the transformer and the plugin sharp. These are, you could say, your client-side image processing libraries. When I say processing, it's not like high-end processing, but like changing the width and height, um, adding blur effects to your image, trying to optimize the image that comes from the server. So things like that, nifty things like that, is what these two libraries would do. Then you have Gatsby image itself, which is the main library that we are going to use. And you have Gatsby source file system. This addition would help if you read files from your local. In our case, we're going to try to read it from Instagram, so we're not going to read it from local, so it doesn't pertain to us. But it's good to have that installed as well. So if you're already on this page, you can go ahead. You can copy this command. For now, I'm just going to stop the development server. I'm just going to do a npm install, and I'm just going to do a save so that it gets saved to my package.json. So we're going to install these four dependencies. So we know, since we are going to display images via the Instagram API, we would definitely need something that Gatsby has to offer with images. So that's why we are first installing this. So that is done. Now, how do we actually go about hitting Instagram APIs? Do we have to go to the Instagram docs for this? That is going to be like, that's going to take a lot of time as well. So Instagram offers like a public API. So you have to get a API key, developer key for all that, and associate an app with it, and then say which app is using this, just like how Facebook or Google or anyone. So you'll be provided with an API key which you have to use in your request so that they'll know where the call is coming from. Well, today we're not going to do any of that. So we are just going to take a public Instagram profile. So if I search Gatsby Instagram, right, you can see the first thing that comes up is this plugin within the Gatsby ecosystem. And it also takes us to a page which says gatsbyjs.com/plugins. And it lists a huge and ever-growing list of plugins that Gatsby offers. And you can there are so many plugins for everything. There's a typography plugin to get your fonts in line. You have like a responsive iframe if you're using iframes. Then you have something, a JSON transformer if you want, and so many plugins that are there. One for Netlify, there's GraphQL as well. So there are a lot of plugins. Today we are going to use the Gatsby source Instagram plugin, and this is the one who's going to enable us to do what we're going to do now. So the installing is pretty straightforward. You just install. we'll quickly install before we're going to see how to install this library. So we just install this as well. So if you just search Gatsby Instagram, that would probably be the first link that comes up for you, and you end up on this page, and it gives you a small how to use as well. This is very useful. So if you do go through some other blog articles where they talk about this, so if I say Gatsby Instagram, yeah, something like this, you would probably run into some GitHub repos and blog articles like something like this one, where which would actually not work currently because Instagram, I think they made a small change to their API in general, where you cannot scrape publicly for a user profile. You can only scrape posts, and you can only scrape posts of profiles which are public. So I cannot get details of a person's profile, but we can get a detail of the post. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to use something that is like nice to look at, photos, and you are going to use their user ID in our case. So once you install your server, we are not done yet. So we have to do a bunch of things before we start our server again, so that we don't have to keep restarting our development server every now and then. So the first thing we have to do is let's get this out of the way, where we have to get the user ID. So following the steps here, it says we have to open Instagram.com, and then we open a particular page that you want to add. So it has to be particular profile which is public, so that you can have access. Otherwise, I'm using a public profile for sake of simplicity. Otherwise, we have to use a developer key, API key, register with Instagram. When I say Instagram, you have to register with Facebook, and then you have to do all that, and then come back to this same post where you have an option to do the querying. Um, yeah, like using the Graph API token. So there's steps for that as well, but today we are going to skip all that, just keep it simple and understand how things work with this profile thing. So I'm going to probably open up, I can open up my own profile, I think. No, I'll go with National Geography. They have nice looking photos. So I'm going to go with National Geography. You guys can choose any public profile that you want to use. So I'm just going to open these guys. They have some really nice looking photos here. We're going to do what the plugin asked us. So we're going to go and inspect element here, and oh, sorry, not inspect element. We have to do a page source. So we view the page source, and once we open the page source, we have to search for profile page under. We'll do that. There you go. So this is the ID that we have to use. We have to use it in our config. So they are mentioned that take the ID. And you remember we were talking about a Gatsby config file, which I said is pretty special to Gatsby. We are going to visit that to add all this. So we will keep the ID, like just copy paste somewhere. So let it be there. I think I can close this guy, and we will just remember all these photos. We're going to see it again soon, and we will know that we are pulling the right profile. So I'm just going to leave it here somewhere, and we will copy this guy right here, and let's go to our Gatsby config file. So Gatsby config is going to host all the Gatsby specific ecosystem specific libraries. So with respect to Gatsby, we already have the plugin style component thing. This is part of the style components version of for specifically made for Gatsby. So we have that already there. We are just gonna append to this Gatsby config plugins, and we're just gonna paste whatever we face there. without specifying a Gatsby plugin in your config, you're going to face errors. You cannot use your Gatsby plugin inside your components without specifying it here. Every plugin has to have it, like it should mention it here, and also you can configure each plugin as you want in this particular place. So in our case, the Gatsby source Instagram plugin, you have several options when it comes to this library. Like previously they used to have this, but now that is behind the Graph API, and you can no longer do it without logging in. But we are using this one, and this requires the ID that we got inside the username. So let me just take National Geography's ID, and I'll just put it here. So this is more like a config, like a static configuration that you have to make for this case. If you do get a developer API key, you can always request for other profiles, profile information, everything in a more dynamic way. Like again, like for keeping it simple, let's say you have a blog about yourself and you want to put your Instagram post or something in your blog right at the footer. You can always use something like this. And if you're developing with Gatsby, you have it all done easily like this. So that's all the Instagram plugin. There's no other configuration specifically for this that is needed. So we are going to do configuration for the other guys. So like how we did for the Instagram plugin, we also need to do for our images. Let me go to that route. Yeah. So you have all the solution, everything, and this is all. Like we just specify these two in our Gatsby config. We won't use the file system. Otherwise, you can specify your file system plugin like this. So you have all your rest of the tutorial with respect to the Gatsby documentation there. We will use like parts of this in our Instagram code as well. So right in our config, we are going to specify Gatsby plugin sharp and Gatsby transformer sharp. And with that, we have our configuration ready. I think we can boot our, I think yeah, we are done. We can boot the Gatsby project back. So let me quickly do that. So if we don't run into any errors, I think we should be fine with that configuration. We'll also make sure that our package.json reflects all our changes. Yeah, we have transform sharp, source Instagram, file system, sharp, image, everything is there. So it is building our source and transform nodes, which is good. Okay, chat, any questions so far? So like if you have any questions or you're stuck somewhere, now is the time. Like after this, we're probably going to start writing some code on top of this, and we are going to try to pull in Instagram's like data through the GraphQL, and we're going to try to show it in the page. Okay, yeah, everything builds good. This is fine. We try to create something that we didn't use. So if we go back to our homepage, there's nothing. There's going to be no difference here. Absolutely, it's going to be the same. I will go ahead and delete this file. I no longer need the test file. Instead, I'm going to create, I'll just create something called a gallery.js. Okay. Okay, Akshat, if there are any doubts in the chat, are there any doubts in the chat? Yeah.
No, sir. So they are able to follow.
Awesome. Okay, great, guys. So yeah, so if you have all your plugins done and we reach this page, then let's get started. So we created a gallery file, so we know how this is going to behave. We'll just create a temporary gallery file here. I'm just going to call it gallery page, and we are going to put it in index here. I'm going to remove all the excess styles from here, and I'm just going to clean everything up so that we don't have anything. And we're going to say what the web Instagram gallery cool. And I'll remove every other thing that is here. Okay, so this is what we have. For just testing sake, I'm just going to add a gallery, and we're going to say /gallery. Oops. Oh, okay. Oh, oops. Yeah, should be fine. Okay, so we have a very generic gallery page right here. So let's start building our component, right? First thing, so far everything's going to look React. There's only few Gatsby specific items that we have to do. And once we do that, everything else is going to look and feel like normal React code. There's nothing Gatsby specific, and it's going to be straightforward. So first thing we can do is just have a node URL. This is for just Instagram's sake, which Instagram URL we have to hit. Okay, in our case, it's going to be www.instagram.com/p. So this is the endpoint that we would probably hit, followed by writing our GraphQL query itself. So we're going to say all Insta node, and we are going to get the edges from there. And we're going to do use static query. Okay. Since I actually know how Instagram's API will return their response, I'm naming it this way, and I'm specifying it this way so that when we get the response, we know. But I'll also do a bunch of console logs inside the method where we use the data, so that we will know what API returns, so that we can use that. So before that, quickly going into what is used static query. Let's go to the doc. Let's go into that. So we can use this. So if you are familiar with React hooks, you know that having the use prefix means whatever you're doing is a hook. And in this case, this is a hook for where you can make GraphQL queries. So the usual usage is something like this, where you say use static query, GraphQL, and then you specify your query. And if you're familiar with GraphQL, like this is a standard GraphQL query, and in GraphQL you specify which attributes you need, and you also can add conditions and can add aliases and everything. So if you are interested knowing more about GraphQL, you can hit their documentation, and there must be tons of YouTube content that you can go through to learn about GraphQL and how flexible it is, how powerful it is. So it's like I said, it's a complete topic by itself to explore and understand. So if you don't follow the GraphQL part, that's okay. And like I also like haven't worked with GraphQL much, so I also like slightly new to some of its syntax. I haven't particularly hit GraphQL from my client side, maybe from the server side, but the GraphQL part is kind of um, not really, you not get completely into it because it varies from API to API. So we are just going to directly use the GraphQL API. So this portion is something that we will have a look from the documentation how it goes. So in the documentation, they're saying this is how we query and for posts, and these are the common fields. that you can query for, and but for public scraping, you can additionally retrieve these. So we would need an ID, we would need the likes, we would probably need the timestamp, comments, caption, maybe not the comments. We will take caption. We can try username, but I'm not sure whether username would come in our public API. But we will try to query all those for sure. And we will write a simple GraphQL query, which will give us all that. And once we are done with that, I'll show you how, you can already see here, you have an item saying local file, and you have Gatsby image mentioned. We will visit this once we construct our initial GraphQL query, so that we don't diverge too much. Okay, so based on this, these are the fields that we have to go through. We'll write a simple GraphQL query to query the Instagram's API. And so we first start with saying GraphQL, yeah, and you have your inverted commas. That's the syntax they're following, so we'll follow that. And then we start writing our GraphQL query. I think you can probably have to start with this guy. Like, I think that's how they started, yep. And we're going to do all Insta node. And here we're going to use a specific GraphQL kind of specific item, which is sorting. So we are going to sort using the timestamp field. So we're going to say sort, and we're going to specify which field we are going to use. In this case, we are going to do field says timestamp. And we're also going to specify the order, which is descending. So it's the same as this. It's just that we are adding one extra item, specifying that, hey, I'm going to do a GraphQL sorting, and it's going to be timestamp based and orders descending. So if you're familiar with SQL, SQL, MySQL, you would have, you have all these sorting items there when it comes to data. So we're going to do that, and also we are going to do a limit just for the testing. So and this applies to public profiles. So we can set a limit as 12. We can set it more. For now, I'm just going to set it at probably 10 or 12. 12 would be more even. So we're going to do that. And from here, we can kind of follow whatever is here. When I tried this before, some fields did not work as intended. So that's why I'm not going to copy paste. I'm just going to type it out here, however it is there. So we have our edges, we have a node, and we're going to start listing the fields that we want. So we're going to take ID, we're going to take caption, likes. So ID, likes, caption. What else do we take? Timestamp, if it gives us. Okay, let me stop there. I don't want to give other fields right now. Let me stick to these so that we can at least see them loading in our screen before we actually go about adding them. So I want to know if one field is causing an error, it won't be too obvious as what is causing the error. So I don't want that to happen. So let me just format this part. Yeah, looks great. And we will come to this portion, which is the local file. So the local file is specific to Gatsby image, and let me load up their documentation again for Gatsby image quickly, and we can see they have this concept of fragments. I don't want to go into like too much deep into it. So basically, Gatsby image allows you to transform your images in different ways. The two major ways are fixed and fluid. And from there, so fixed is going to be like you have to specify a particular width and height. Fluid is going to be whatever the width of the image is, it's going to let it go through. In the API, in the example of Instagram's that source plugin, they're given it as fixed, but we are going to use Fluid, um, just to have it like kind of feel responsive at the same time. I don't want us to. I want the images like how it is in the mobile, like we see, so it is end to end as much as possible, and it's not really, uh, you know, um, the width is 480 and it's just a small pixel at the left left corner or something like that. So I don't want to have it fixed. I'm going to change it into fluid. If we have it fluid, you would essentially don't want any of this, and you just have to change this to fluid. So to keep it simple, fluid is responsive, fixed is fixed, and this let's not get like you need not get too deep into that at this point. So if you are dealing with a lot of images and your project demands that, it's definitely worth reading more on it. But for our example, I think this should suffice. Okay, so that would cover our GraphQL. I am assuming, like, I think that's all we will need till this point. So if you guys have like, if you guys can use the same GraphQL query, you can. I'll give you like I can give a couple of minutes to use the same GraphQL query in your local development. Because like if there's a syntax error or if there's any error in this, we can come back and fix it. But if we are on the same page, it's very easy to do that. Okay, next we will define our return method, what we are going to return. For now, we will just return something simple. Okay, so here's where we are going to use our style components so that we can. So I'm just going to say again the same thing, container. I'm going to do style div, and I'm going to, since I want it to look like a mobile thing, so we're going to say width is 480 pixels. We're going to just fix it. We don't want to get into uh, responsive design and all that. We'll just stick to 480 pixels. We're going to do a margin 0 auto, so that it's always at the center of the page. And for now, we're going to just say background is red so that we know the div appears. Yeah, so we're going to say container. And inside this container, I'm just going to call a method that we are going to write. So I'm going to say render images. This is the method we're going to write now. So inside the container, which is going to be 480 pixels, we are going to call this method, and the contents of what this returns is going to be rendered inside our post. So our entire web page image, each image is represented by this method, and we will be looping through the results of this GraphQL. Right now, since the limit is 12, we're going to loop through the 12 images, and we are going to try and modify them just to look, look nice and look similar to the Instagram's UI as much as possible. So the first thing is like declare that method, and we're going to say const images. And since we renamed it as edges here, so we're going to call it. We're going to do edges dot map. So we are going to loop through each and every node in this map. Oops. Yeah. Yeah. And at this point, I'm just going to do a console.log so that we know. So if we have data here, we know our query is working fine. So let's check if we have anything. So we have some error. Let's see. I think it was better previously. Okay, there seems to be something. Oops. something's not closing. Let's just fix that. So for edges, we have for nodes, local file, child sharp, fluid. Maybe there's a, so I think this could be a brace missing. Nope. Oh. Okay, that was not intended. Okay. And one more thing, style did not get imported, so we're gonna just do styled and import styled. Yeah, so that happened. So yeah, I think I just slightly messed up my styles, messed up my braces there. So everything is rebuilt, it's done. Syntax wise is fine. We'll just go to the page, reload. Yeah, we would get nothing, but let's see our console. Hopefully we get some data. There you go, nice. Okay, so I'll just keep the GraphQL in page. So this is the GraphQL that we need, and all we did was call render images inside here, and we are console.logging each result in the network from Instagram, and you have all these values, whatever we are sending, and you also have a local file which has this base64 encoded thing. This is from Gatsby image, and it is, since it's embedded, like baked into Gatsby with along with GraphQL, we can make use of that. So all this will work very well. If we quickly go into our network call, you can see there's a specific JSON call that happens here. That's your response from Instagram's API. So we have this. So we can use all this. We have the node, whatever we saw in the console.log, it's all there. So if we increase our limit here, like let's say instead of 12, if it's 24, you're gonna see this request returning like, oh, was there another request? Yeah, it returns 24. So that's the API returning. So I'll just give 2 minutes. If so, rest of the part is trivial. It's all React. Just getting the GraphQL query right. This is key. So I'll just give 2 minutes. Akshay, let me know if there's any questions so far.
Yes, sir. So they are asking for this code. Can you be on the same screen for 2 minutes?
Yeah. So that's what I'll give 2 minutes so that you can take the GraphQL query. Let me know if you have to scroll further. We'll do that. We'll like once everyone is done with the GraphQL, only then we will proceed to the next thing. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I think now we can continue.
Okay, so we have our return method, and that's all like fairly straightforward. We're going to now loop through our nodes. So we already know the structure of our nodes from here. We know how it looks. There's no difference between that and our GraphQL code, GraphQL fields. So it's pretty easy to know what we have to query for. within this. So let's start to do that. So again, we are going to do ID, caption, likes, and then local file. And inside local file, we are going to do child image sharp. It's like literally the same thing that we are using here. So it's pretty easy to relate to what we need to query. So let me just quickly format that. Yep, awesome. And we'll get all this from a node. So once we get this, we are going to return our image component. And here we can have it in different ways. For now, we will just to see the images land on the page. We are just going to put a simple div, no styling, nothing, just images there. And also, I'm just going to have had an anchor link just to show that you can link it back. And we can have the we can have the node URL that we added earlier, and we can say slash ID. So this will take, so it will do Instagram, instagram.com/p and slash the ID that is given there, so that with the ID of the photo. So it's like a direct link to your photo. And then here we're going to use the image, and this is going to be your Gatsby image, which you have to import. So we'll do this. So we're going to do import image from Gatsby image, and we will use it here. But before using Gatsby image, I want to show you just using it using normal image tag, how it is done, and what is the difference between the two. So why, what makes Gatsby image slightly special, right? So we will do that now as well. So I'm going to specify the source. Oh wait, I think I can't specify the source. Okay, wait, let me use the Gatsby image straight first, and then we'll move on to the source from there. Yeah, okay. I don't think I would have the access to the direct URL there. Okay, so we're gonna say loading. So sorry for the diversion there. So we're gonna use image imported from Gatsby image directly. So this is a component from Gatsby image that we used earlier, that we set up earlier in our Gatsby config for via plugin and sharp, and then we installed it, and we're going to use it here directly. And Gatsby image has several properties. We can quickly go through that as well for a second. Yeah, so these are all the, so any library, any component property, they're going to have all these items like specified in the docs. So we are going to use the loading field. So it takes lazy, eager, and auto. We are going to explicitly mention it as lazy. Eager is going to be like try to going to prefetch the image as soon as possible. So any instance where it feels the main JavaScript thread or the main UI thread that is rendering is free, it's going to try and hit that thread and try to get. But we're going to explicitly say lazy, so it's going to load slow. So it's going to happen slightly deferred, wait for the rest of the content to appear on the page, something like that, and then display. And as an alt, we can just mention caption. If there's no caption, I'll just give it an empty string. And we're going to give one more field, and we're going to say child image sharp dot fluid. So this is a very Gatsby image specific field. The difference now would be if we did use fixed here, we would be doing fixed, and we're going to do fixed here. So in the doc, if you saw first, it's going to say data returned from the fixed query. When the prop is an array, it has to be combined with media keys to allow for art. So you have different fields for each fixed and fluid. So in this case, we are going to use fluid so that it feels more responsive. And there are a lot of other tons of configurations, fade in, and duration fade in. You can like go ahead, play with it, see how you like it, and you can use like try to come up with fancy animations or something like that for your own website. And it also has a very nice onload callback. So when the image is loaded, let's say you want to manipulate the image or something like that, you can always do that and try to get that going. And if like for if the image loads and you want to kick off some other activity, you can always do that. If image loading is a very specific thing, if you are going for that. There are also other cool items you can do with Gatsby image. One such thing is Gatsby image animation SVG. I think I can, if I find, yeah, if there's an article on that, we can see if we can make anything. No, this doesn't have anything. We'll just try one more article. If we don't find what we are looking for, then we'll skip it. But you can always go visit it and give it a try. No, it doesn't have. Okay, so what effect I was talking about is, so in Gatsby image, if the image loads, you can load it as an SVG. It will be like a monochrome, kind of a, you could say, painted version of the image. Till the image loads, it won't really load up. And once the image is done loading, it's going to turn into color. I saw that somewhere. It was really cool, and it was written that you can do all of that simply using Gatsby image, and you don't even need to write any bit of code. It takes care of all of that. Like if any of you guys listening, like if you do find a link to that, you can put it in chat so that everyone can see and share. But we won't look into that. But I'm just saying that that's also there, and that's something cool that you can see. Okay, so we have our Gatsby image done here already, and we'll also just add a couple of dummy divs, and we'll just put our caption, and we'll put our ID. Sorry, we'll put our likes just to see it on the screen. Okay. Am I returning this? I'm returning this. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to return images. Okay, there you go. So we have all the images that we saw on the Instagram page, like the top 24. Let me just remove that background red. Uh, Looks very gaudy. Yeah, let me close this guy. Okay, so awesome. So with just this one component, we were able to pull everything from Nat Geo's National Geography, their page, and by like their caption, the like count, the image, and we have all the 24 images, like the top 24 images sorted by timestamp in descending order, everything here. And if I just make a quick change to this, make it ascending, you're going to see it comes in the reverse order. So that's what the GraphQL thing, that's how it helps us. And this would probably be the first image that they ever posted, because it's timestamp and it's an ascending. So that's a cool thing with GraphQL, very powerful, very simple. Client decides what it wants to query. You don't write explicit backend SQL queries or anything. So all that is there. So there we go. We have our content ready. with just few items. So now, if you guys, I'll leave this part open. So in case you want to, you have not reached this point. So we are importing image from Gatsby images, and we are just simply looping through our edges that we fetch from our GraphQL, and then we have node, and then we are getting the fields from that, and we are just returning that array which is made into this JSX DOM nodes. So once you guys reach this place, we can talk a bit further on what a Gatsby image brings to the table, and what are the Gatsby components that we see here already. I'll just give a couple of minutes probably, and we will move to the next thing. Akshal, if there's anything in the chat, do let me
Uh,
know.
yes, sir. So they are asking in image container, what is this loading prop? Can you explain this again?
Oh, okay, awesome. So if so I'm on slightly high speed internet, so that is fine. If you are on a 2G or a 3G, if you have reached this point, if I reload the page, you could see that for probably a split second, you can see a blurred image on top of mine. I hope you guys can see. I'm refreshing the page continuously so that you guys can see that. So that is um, the effect that you would see. But what happens in the background is something like this. So if I just search lazy loading image in general, and we let's say we pick up one, we pick up CSS tricks. I like the website, very useful. Uh, oh wait, oh they have a very old article. Sorry about that. We'll go into this. So this is the first line that we have to look at. So images can appear on a website due to being inline in the HTML or a CSS background images. So this would mean that if you directly have an image tag in your website, in your page, or you have it as a background property, the browser is going to try and fetch it at the first possible time. So if I want, you would have seen websites where you have this huge full screen 1080p wallpaper. You just have the brand's name in the middle, and you would have probably 3 4 navigation links at the top. Typical like WordPress websites, you could say, have all that. That 1080p image, let's say it is probably not optimized much, or even if it is optimized, it's probably 500 kb, 700 kb, something like that. Your entire website is probably going to be less than that in terms of kb. If it's React, it's going to be 700 kbs, give or take, for a boilerplate, right? So that 700 kb of image, it's going to take up a lot of your bandwidth, and it's going to prevent from any of your content appearing on the page. The most famous case would be this would be the best example. Yeah, we call this FOUC, flash of unstyled content. You would have seen this in your, if you have used internet enough, you would have definitely seen this problem. Like I've seen it plenty of times when I used to use Facebook. You can see that the page does not have the CSS in it, right? And the CSS is not there because the page took a lot of time to load everything else in the page, that it couldn't, by that it couldn't reach CSS in time. So the text rendered and the images somehow rendered in this case. So images fought with the CSS in the race condition that is there while loading, and the images got loaded, but the CSS is not there. And this is a very bad customer experience because most of the websites now depend heavily on layouts, like Flexbox or Grid, and it is not like inline or table layouts like this. So the customer would see nothing on the screen, and then they would see random text in random fonts, and then suddenly everything will get color, everything will get the layout, everything will have its font changed, and it is a very jarring experience, to be frank. So lazy loading in general is going to avoid loading any of these assets upfront. So you're going to be very lazy and you're going to load the asset. Uh, that's a funny way to put it, but that is literally what it will do. The browser, you're instructing the browser to defer pulling these assets as long as possible. So by giving the rest of the bandwidth the time uh, to avoid pulling big number assets, you're giving enough time for all the important parts of your website, which like I said earlier, the critical path, like your main CSS of your layout, main JavaScripts to initialize your entire application. You will have your initialization calls and maybe authorization calls, checking with the API if the user is signed in, all these things before the UI even has to load. So those kind of things have to come in. You have to cramp them up and pack them up right up front, and you have to try deferring everything else because rest of them is not needed. You need these guys to go in first so that the user sees something meaningful on the page. There's also one more concept. There's something called meaningful content, first contentful paint, or first meaningful content paint. So this is another concept which will come along the same line, where this image explains it like really well, I think. So if you load Google's page, you see an empty screen. After you hit the search, you see the search bar, and then you see these specific images. Yeah, you see these guys, and then you see the images, and then you see stuff under that. So till here, these images are not loaded. Even these images are not loaded at this point. So the first contentful paint would be just the search bar, search the nav bar, just the nav bar. That's it. So as a customer, when you look at this, you know something is happening in the background. If you go from this guy directly to this on a 2G or a 3G network, it's going to, let's say, take 8 seconds for the page to load. It's not Google's fault. Like they didn't, it's not like they didn't do a good job to load it up. It's the time the network takes for it to download the content. And what you can control is the way you code it. So if you defer loading the images, all your styles will get loaded first. Your data will even reach the client faster. So all this is data from the server, right? So this has to come to the client side even before the images, because half the time I'm searching, maybe I'm not searching for to look at the person, rather I'm just searching for meaningful information of the person. So the text has more weightage in terms of content the customer will consume in this specific use case. And you need to show that up first. So you are lazy loading, you are deferring the image load till the next frame, and then you load this guy, because this is the first thing the customer will look. You still haven't loaded this. You know why? Because it's coming below that. That's not the user's focus of attention. So in a UX design perspective, this is secondary. The main image here is going to be the first focus, the first thing that hits the customer when things load. That it's going to be the text, then this image, and only then this. So that is lazy loading. And lazy loading can be for images, and lazy loading can be for JS, CSS, anything that you say. Like you can even lazy load data content in a nice fashion. So if you to take a good example of lazy loading, I'm not biased. I have seen lazy loading happen much in Amazon's website, so I'll just take that as an example. But I'm surely I'm not biased, guys. Please trust me. Let me reload this page, right? And you will see that a lot of these requests, if I'm in the Alt tab, you can see the requests keep going and going and going and going. And you can see each image, even if it's small, 18 KB, 14 KB, this is something like a 162 KB thing. All of this is loading, and yet the page loads fast. Why? Because all the images, like there are a lot of other aspects preceding this, like you're pre-rendering the files and providing a HTML and everything, but getting the data for each part of this, each card here, is going to be deferred. So only the calls for this, whatever you see on your screen, is going to happen first, and then the rest of the calls. So that's what the loading field as a background has. But in our case, it's very abstract. Everything is abstracted. Uh, it is just like we saw here. It was just three fields: lazy, eager, and auto. Eager is saying, hey, go prefetch this. Lazy is saying, defer this as much as possible. And if we say auto is going to be like normal browser behavior. If the browser thinks it is important to fetch this first, it's going to fetch it. Otherwise, it's not going to fetch it. Although it's defaulted to lazy, I just specify this explicitly so that we can cover this aspect of Gatsby image. Yeah, I think I went a bit overboard there, but I hope that answers your question. So that's why that's what the lazy as a background. Okay. Okay. I hope all of you guys have reached this part. If there are no like questions to answer immediately, I think we can just spend the next 15 minutes trying to just simply style these components just for to make it look similar to Instagram if possible. Um, if chat wants to go through to other categories inside Gatsby, specifically testing and performance, we can head there directly without styling, um, because the styling part would just mean like we're just making something look like Instagram with CSS and stuff. So chat, you can let me know now, like if you want to take 15 minutes to style it, we can all like style together, try to apply some styles, or we can try to go through these topics on the left, testing, with jest and why testing, I can cover something on those lines, and performance as well, like introduction to Lighthouse, of adding offline support, how does that work? We can have like a large discussion on that, and it's more like new things to know, and these are all not Gatsby specific, so that will be very useful. So let's take 30 seconds, chat, like if you want to move to these things, maybe visit the styling in the end, please let me know.
Sir, we can do the styling. We can move forward. There are no questions.
Okay, so you guys want to go with the styling first, right? Okay. Was that right? Like, uh, was there anything on like moving to testing directly or something like that?
No, sir.
Okay.
We can move to styling.
Okay, sure. Let's then like pack in the styling as fast as possible. Um, we'll try to keep the styling minimal, and we won't try to add any functionality. We can add the icons, but we will see. So first thing, so on a React kind of, so since from now it's all going to be pretty much React. It's not going to be anything Gatsby specific. So the React way of things, you can say a mock or a page, you convert those into components that you can build. So you basically split the page into different sections. So in this example that I have, so you have a header, you have the stories, then you have your post item, right? And then inside the post you have different sections. So quickly, we won't try to spend time using the logos and something. We'll just put text there, just to speed it up. So we have a gallery, and this is a container. So we are going to introduce a header component. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to call it. It's again going to be a div, and we are going to probably give it a. I don't think we would need a margin here, would we? Let me just bring it up here. Okay. I don't think we need a, we just need a probably a shadow or something like below that. So we'll try to keep it as close to Instagram. We'll not try to emulate it as much as we can. So we're just gonna give this shadow. Okay, and we're gonna do that, and we'll specify the component here, header, and we'll just add a small h4 tag. We'll just call it Instagram. We can also call it my Instagram. Why not? Okay. We have an awkward looking box. I think I should just remove the shadow. I thought it would look nice. We'll just go with a border. We'll do a border bottom, and we'll do this. It will just have this line. Does it have the? I think I can see it. I'm not sure. Let me do it. Give it a padding as well. I think it is stuck to the image. That's why I'm not able to see that. Maybe if I make it 10 pixels, maybe I'll see that. Yeah. Okay, it was there next to the image. Okay, for now, we are just going to add to the container. We will just add a border so that we can see it. It feels like a mobile device. So I'm going to set it to 6C. It's going to give a slight gray, and we are also going to make this the same. It's not going to be 10 pixels. Let it be 1. And next we're going to have our stories. So we're going to say stories. We're going to say styled div again, and we're going to say we'll give it a slight padding. So the padding is going to be top right, bottom left. I'm going to give 0.5 em, and yeah, I'm just going to go 0.5 em. That should look good. And I don't think this requires. Yeah, the post has a small border. This doesn't require. So we're going to add it here, and we're going to add stories right here. And for stories, I'm going to say, like images, we're going to say render stories. So that these are like simple separation of concerns. So we have a stories component which renders stories. We can even say, I can even put this inside a separate component if needed. But this way, it's very easy to read. So we have stories, we have container which controls how it looks outside, and then you have a render stories thing which will render. And we can do the same thing that we tried here. So we have to just look at, okay, rounded, something like that. No. So I don't think image style. No, it doesn't have anything like that. Okay, I don't think it has anything for the round effect. So for now, we will, to make them look into circles, we'll make them look like we'll have a bunch of circles without images in it, to just have like, something like stories show up. So I'm going to say const render stories, and we're going to call it. What we are going to return is probably going to be another style component, and we'll just probably just loop through four times or something. Yeah, we can do that. So I'm going to just say story count, something like that, and I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and just to say, like, we're just going to show 4 stories, and we're going to do story count dot map, and I'm going to return this. and we are going to just return, try to return a style component. So I'm just going to say id story. So far what we have done, we just declared a placeholder stories component, and inside the stories component we have a method render stories. Inside that we just declared a dummy array for simplicity, and we are just looping through that, and we're returning a story component, which we'll just write here. So the main goal of this component is going to be like, it should look like a circle, and it should have some kind of a padding. So first things first, we will add a padding right of 0.25 em, and we will set its width to 48 pixels. It's generally a good practice to have things in the count of multiples of 8. It's more predictable. More design systems follow something like that, conventional, so it's easy for everybody to relate to that. And I'm going to set a background color of DDD. Let's see how this looks. It looks wonderful, doesn't it? Looks horrible. Okay, because we didn't specify which direction it should go. I don't want to do fancy flexbox stuff right now, so I'm just going to simply say inline block. Yeah, there it is. For some reason, our padding right didn't work. Let's try margin. Okay, yeah, with inline block, I don't think, since it's inline, padding is not the right thing I should have gone for. Padding is going to be inside, right? So margin right, and the margin is not enough. So let's make that, and maybe I can increase it a bit. Let me just try 72 so that it's proportional with the page. Yeah, looks better, I think. Okay. Inline block, let's just add one more. So that's 5. And I think if I do a 6, it's going to go down. It doesn't even show up, does it? It goes down. So we'll just stick to 5. So in Instagram, and so I think Instagram would be built with React Native, I'm assuming. So you would have scrollable components that are there, which are specific to React Native. We won't like, it'll take like, it'll be too much of a diversion if we try to implement that. So we're just gonna assume we have only 5 friends right now, and 5 of them posted stories, and in fact one of them is going to be your own thing. And a nice trick to make things look like circles is to just specify a border radius of 50%. So border radius is usually you make the edges of something curved. So usually the values would be like 10 pixels, 2 pixels, 4 pixels, something like that, and you'll be used across buttons and containers. But when you do 50%, it's going to make anything above 50%, it's not going to have any change. It's going to give you the same effect, but in our case, it's going to make it into circles. So if you ever want to make circles in HTML with respect to your design, anything like you have a kick-ass blog, you have your photo, but you want to make it look circular. Don't go into Photoshop trying to make it circle. Just put a HTML, put a div, make the border is 50%, and I think you can do a background image, and you can specify your image in the URL property, and the image will look like it is rounded because it's inside the div, and everything else is hidden there. So it's a good nice little trick to know. We'll just change this guy. This guy is on the left. Okay, so stories are added, although without images, no functionality, but you see the placeholders there, right? And header, we'll just add a left and right margin, so it's even. I'm going to do 0.5, so this aligned with our guy, and I'm going to change the font. I'm not happy with the font. For now, I'm just going to change it to Calibri. It's more of a Calibri. Oops. Maybe I should just stick to. Maybe my OS does not have that. Yeah, I'll stick to this. Looks easier. I'm just going to do sans serif. I like Roboto and Open Sans, but I don't want to import those fonts right now. So you have your header, you have your stories done. Let's now go into our images. Let's quickly go through that. Okay, I hope like this portion was not rushed. So I'll just repeat what we have done. We have a header style component, we have a story style component, and we have a render story method. Inside render stories, we have just a dummy story count. Let's assume this is also fetched from a GraphQL API, right? And that would mean real content, real images going there, and eventually you would probably add like an on click, something like that, and make fancy stuff happen here. On click, you bring a new page, something like that. And so all that is there. So assume GraphQL API, and our style components have these styles. Header just has a bottom border. It has some margin on the left and right. It can be padding as well. Then you have stories, which all have padding, and which is the div, which has this. So it has a padding here. The header has a padding there, and then you have the story component, which has the 50% border radius to make it a circle, just inline block so that it appears in a line. No flex stuff there for now. A background of DDD, so this looks nice on the eyes. And width, we are giving it 72 for width and height, so that they're kind of proportional to the images that we're looking at. And the margin right is just to give them spacing in between. Anything more might look awkward. So that's what we have done so far. Let's quickly style our images and get that out of the way. Um, now, now you might see that we have been using style components with divs like all the time, right? What if, how do we even go about styling this guy? It's a Gatsby image. It's not a HTML component. It's a custom CSS thing, right? So how do we go about that, styling that? Well, since everything is under the Gatsby ecosystem, plus style components allows us to style kind of like everything. Any component that you try, if it can take a CSS property, style components can do it. So for the syntax sake, if you just search how to style a Gatsby component with styled, Gatsby image with style components. If you just search like this, it's going to give you several results, and you can just simply go into that and see how these guys are trying to style it. And it's actually as simple as this. So we just go put the image in a parenthesis and just go about our job of writing whatever we want. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to say const image styled img, and then it's normal CSS. It's nothing extraordinary that we have to do just to style our image. So we have this portion. So if we want to write any image specific CSS, we can definitely go about doing this. Right now, I don't have anything specific. If there was any disorientation or something in the image, like let's see this image, does it even appear like this? Yeah, so that's how the image. If there was anything cut or anything as such, we could do. But right now we can just replace this with image, and everything will still work as it is. There's no change. And if we give any style properties here, let's say margin. So since it is going to be a vertical scrolling thing, we just have to give a top and bottom margin. So I'm going to just get 1 EM. There you go. So we just modified some custom component, Gatsby specific component with style components just like that. There's no it's very easy as well, and just you specify that in the parenthesis and you go about the styling. So you applied a top and bottom margin, and just to keep it nice, I'm going to give a border bottom 1 pixel solid to this guy as well. So stories also has a nice line. Cool. And we don't have the API information. Let's just try this, guys. We will try going into the Instagram source plugin page again. It did say we can use name. It did say you can use name, I think somewhere. Timestamp, permalink. Okay, why can't I find that? I did say somewhere down below. Username, it did say username. We will try that to see if we can fetch username. If it does, we can just use that. Otherwise, we might have to hard code it for now. Yeah, so let's try that. I will specify the username above. If it throws an error, that means username is not valid and our page won't load. Okay, it gives the counter, so that's bad. Okay, we will just hard code it as National Geography. This is, since it's like a public API, we won't have access to that. Okay, then let's not do that. So I'm just going to say National Geography, or I'm just going to call it Nat Geo. Simpler. And we can, so since this is an image item, so we can create a nice wrapper around this as well if you want. So we're going to say const image title, and it's going to be a styled h4 tag. We used h4 for the heading, so let's say h5, and we're going to say I can specify font family at the containers level. I don't want to keep changing it. Sans serif. If I remove this, it should work, I guess. Let me check. Okay, looks good. And also, I think the container can have a small padding, a 0.25 em. So the rest of the page has that. I don't have to give it specifically to the rest of my page, or maybe not. Images get clustered. I'll give it to this guy. So we're going to say padding 0.25 em. And we are going to make it font weight as bold. If not, I think it should already be bold. We'll just double check that. So I'm going to say image title, Nat Geo, and we'll remove this. Right? And oh, it's too small. Okay, H4 it is then. Yeah. Cool. That changed things. And it's kind of very small still. I don't know why. Okay, I think it looks fine. Let's go back to the Instagram page again. So you do have at least a circle here, and these guys. So let's see how we can use probably a story circle. So we have our story circle here, right? So we can maybe we can use this to reuse this inside. Just put it to the left of this guy. Let's look at how to do that. Or maybe, yeah, let's do that first. So passing props to style components. So I did tell you before that you can pass properties to your style components and make them, take stuff conditionally. So passing props with style components, maybe this will help you. This will help us. So the main thing we are looking for here would be syntax. Okay. Yeah, see, this works. So this is what effectively we have to do. I guess let's try that. Why not? So in this place of width, we're going to try saying props.width. Yeah, and here same here. We're going to do props.height. And if if it was done correctly inside our render stories, if I say width is to 72, height, maybe I'm missing the pixels part. Maybe let's see. Yep, nothing happened there. Maybe if I give pixels, does it work? Yep, that works. Awesome. So there you go. We can now easily reuse this guy right here. And I can just say 48 pixels. The alignment would be off, but you still get a circle. So we have literally reused the same component. So essentially, if you look at the UI, they are technically the same thing. So whatever you tap on the person who posted, if you tap on their profile picture, it's still going to take you into the stories. So that's what we are going for. Now all we need to do is just bring them both in alignment, and just give the padding, and we should be good to go there. I don't want to like try and add a location text there. That would just take time by itself. So we're going to add story. We're going to add image here. So we have just reused the same story component. So if it has functionality, it's going to retain that functionality across the board, which is a real nice thing. And we just did it with just adding 2 lines of this and just sending it as prop, and it was done. Now here for the CSS part, let me just directly start editing this div and see if I can get it to work. Awesome. So that if I edit this, I'll know exactly what CSS to give. Saves time. I kind of do this often when I have to um, give styling, and I don't want to go back and forth. This kind of helps a lot. Yeah. Align content, I think flex start would look good. So for align items, yeah, flex start would look good. Oops. Was it flex end? No. Flex end. Yeah, flex end will look good because that's how the alignment is. And a small padding. 0. I think it's the same across the board. Yeah, 0.25 em. I think it's 2.5. Yeah, 5 looks better. Okay, so this is the property we have to add to a style component. Let's go ahead and do that. We will call it the image title container for a style component perspective, and we will just add image title container styled div. Yep, and that's it. So the same styles will get applied now. We have the header done. Effectively, there should be a location. We can add that as well, but it's going to be the same. So if we ever get a location, we can always insert it into this place. Okay, and between the photos, I think there might be a small line. So let's just, so there's a separation between the two. Let's go ahead and add that as well. So that would go into our image container, and we're going to say the same border bottom, 1 pixels, solid, CCC. Did I give? Okay. I'm not sure. Did I give it right? Oh, I gave it image, I think. Wait, what is the container? Oh, let's just make an image container. I missed out on that, and I was giving it in the wrong place. We'll just make an image container. Just okay. Yeah, image container, another style div. So all the CSS and the JavaScript, everything is going to be in the same place. So when you have to come edit this component, you know exactly where to look and what to do. Everything's in the same page. So you have a, then we just add a bit of a padding. So you got the border bottom here. We just do a small padding. Top, I think just top padding would be enough. Maybe 0.5. Yep. And we can then do a margin as well, so that there's slight more spacing between these two guys. Maybe it actually looks good. Yeah, it looks good. Let's leave it there. Yeah. So these two are done. The only thing remaining is the likes, and we have this text. It looks slightly off. Let's try to fix it. Let's see what to do. So we need to specify the username. The likes is just above there, and it has a text called likes. Let's put up a style container, or we can just have a hashtag. Yeah, we can do that. Likes text. And the naming is a bit important, chat. So if you name it well, it's going to save. It's going to be very easy to backtrack and identify items, and it's all very verbose, right? If you look at here, you're like, oh, there's a header, there's stories, and you go into stories. Oh, okay, there's a story, and okay, that's all there is to the component. And then when you go to images, there's so many. You have image container. Okay, it contains the entire image. There's a title container which has title and story. Okay, it has this. Then there's the image, and then if I say something like likes text, it says more like, oh, it's a text, it's not a container, right? So small things like that really helps in the longer run, as a developer, both who's maintaining something and developing something. Yeah, we have a small text here, like the image. Let's move it up, and it has the text likes along with it. So we'll make it a string literal. We are going to They're going to do this. I'm not going to write conditional stuff to make it likes based on what the thing and what the thing is. And we can make this guy inside another container. We can say image description or image details, so that it contains everything, right? Image details container. We're going to put both of this here. Yeah. And this will probably be the last set of styling that we will do. And we're just going to do styled.div, and we are again going to say padding is 0.25. This definitely a better way to handle this padding thing. I'm not really happy with that we are giving this same thing everywhere, but if we do slightly design it slowly, slower than this, we could maybe get a way around where we don't keep adding that to every little thing. And H5, if you see there's a automatic padding added, I want to try remove that. If I do this, maybe it will work. Yep. So line height is usually added to all the heading tags, paragraph tags. Line height is what is the vertical space that a text will take in a screen. So if I reset it to 0, that means it's not adding anything extra. So from here on, whatever I add is all that is going to appear there. So it is something like that. And image title container, I think the top padding is too much. So let's fix that quick. So we're going to do 0.25 for top, nothing, 0.5 for right, 0.5 for bottom, and 0.5 for left. So it's always top right, bottom left. So we will add that. I think there need not be any padding at all at the top. That looks way better. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, so we have the likes, we have the description. If you really want the description to look even more Instagram kind of a thing, the caption, I don't want to add a caption style container again, but uh, we can probably add another story component, and this time we say the width is even more smaller. Let's say 16 pixels, right? And height is also 16 pixels. maybe it, oh yeah, it looks nice. Maybe 24. 24 would be slightly bigger. Nice. It'll be much better, I think. Yeah, and we'll add just add nat geo, probably in h5. No, we can actually add it in a same likes text so that we get the line height reset. Maybe at this point we can say we can change this into a typography thing rather than likes text as a style component. For simplicity, we will leave it here, but I think that should be the right way to go. And this div, I think if we give it as inline, everything is going to go in the same way, instead of um, this being sorry, not this guy. Oh, it flew somewhere. Wait, not this one. The H5, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, we can specify the H5. It might be a little hacky, I think. Like if we want to do it cleanly, um, this should be processed as text. Um, like essentially, everything should be in line. I can give it a margin, negative margin, or even like a bottom value in minus, and say the position is relative. Sorry, not minus, plus, and get it to look slightly aligned. That would work, but it's not the best of ideas, but it is close. Okay, maybe we don't need the text. It slightly looks ugly. We didn't get it right. We just need the images, and we can align it better. But yeah, it looks slightly ugly, guys. So I'm just going to remove that. It would require slightly more. So if we see here, what they have done is they have separated the image here, and they have put the text and everything in inline, so since this tick mark, this is an icon, it can play well with the rest of the thing since it's an icon, but since this cannot be in the same line because it has to be a bit big, they did that. So maybe that's what we also have to do, but in this kind of a mobile layout, it might look slightly ugly. So I think that part we can skip. So this is the final thing. It kind of looks neat. Yeah, you might not feel it as Instagram because of the icons are missing, but these are the bare bones of it, right? The layout, um, you have the like with a good API around, this can be filled with images. This can have more information. You can add more style components like this below the images, and you can, like, for example, you have React icons. It's a very nice package. So they have, if you are familiar with Font Awesome, material icons, they have the whole lot. So you can install React icons, and you can say React icons slash FA, which stands for Font Awesome, to get Font Awesome icons. And you have like you can get material design icons by saying slash empty. And material design is Google's UX philosophy, and they have a lot of nice icons which you can do. So you can import React icons and take this star and sorry, this heart, and put it here, and add a clicking functionality or something so that it highlights and doesn't get highlighted based on like your interaction. And that can instead like make an API call, um, like in however we ship it. Like there's a lot of libraries to make API calls. Axios is one famous thing which helps you make um, calls from the client side. Okay, so yeah, I think that is the styling part. I hope you feel like we headed in the right direction with respect to how we went about styling it. Kind of similar to make it look like Instagram in a way, in a bare bones fashion. And I hope we saw like different ways we can use style components. We tried to nicely use the same story component in terms of width and height, and trying to make it make it configurable so that you can reuse it across the page instead of writing a completely brand new component. So that's nice. It's a nice flexing that we did with the style components library. And like again, like if you keep refreshing the page, you would see it gets blurred and gets lazy loaded. Gatsby image comes into play, handles all that for us without us doing any configuration. And we also use the GraphQL query from Gatsby. So using their use static query hook and their GraphQL, which is baked into that, we are just running a GraphQL query to their Instagram's API, and we are getting this, and then we are just making it fluid so that all gets rendered. Okay, so I think that with that I can end this part of building something. I hope you felt it was useful. I hope you liked it. I hope you feel like you can do a lot more with the exposure we had to Gatsby. And I think you can easily make it, make these ideas transferable to um, other libraries, and as well as you can make more use of Gatsby's features. Like we haven't even touched the database part, but you can always go try to set up with a database. I think Gatsby has MySQL connections. You can do a sourcing from different databases like this, and they have all the um, like you have plugins for everything. So there's nothing you would have to, like, there's no inventing the wheel. It's all like you just go search the plugin. If nothing is there, then you go and build your own thing. Okay. Yeah, so Akshat, I'm this part is done. um, is it okay to go through anything else, or do we end the stream here?
Uh, Sir, now we have to wrap it up because it's
Okay.
already 7 p.m.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, not a problem. Yeah, Chet. So like if you get the time, go through the performance part. I just wanted to sign off with the Lighthouse audit. It's a nice tool by Google, and it helps you measure the performance of your website. You can just install a browser plugin, and just install the browser plugin. Um, like fire up your console, and it would show up here, like right here, and you just do. You can select desktop and just say generate report, and it will evaluate the page that you have, and it's going to give you a report, something like you will have a score, and it's also going to say what kind of problems that you actually have with the website. Yep. So Google's Lighthouse score is 98, and it talks about first contentful paint, time to interactive. You can click on each of these items, and it talks about problems within the page, how long it takes to load something, and everything. Do definitely give it a read. It is very useful, and you will learn a lot of items with respect to web performance just by going through the Lighthouse thing. Yeah, I think yeah, with that I'm done with my talk. So if there are any questions in the chat, you can go ahead and ask me. I think we can probably spend 10 more minutes if it's okay, taking questions, and I think with that we can end the stream.
Sir, there are no questions in the chat. I think everyone was able to catch up. And
Okay.
thank you so much, sir, for giving us time today and taking this wonderful session. Now, I would like to hand over to Anisha. She'll take it forward. Over to you, Anisha.
Thank you, Akshat. Thank you, sir, for this amazing session. I think we have learned a lot today. Okay, just to finish it up, I know everybody would be tired after attending this amazing session and following along. I'd just like to notify everybody that we'll be sharing a link both in the chat and it should be in your on your screen in a few minutes. It's a feedback form link. As you might have noticed, we do have a few rewards for the people who join into the session and followed along. So to be able to be eligible to win those rewards, you have to fill in the feedback form along with the GitHub link to the website or the page that you built along with us during this session. So it could be a portfolio or it could be the exact website with a few of your own quirks to it, but we'd like to see what you guys came up with. So it is optional obviously, but if you don't want to give them the link and everything, you won't be eligible to win the prizes. Apart from that, please do fill in the link to make sure that you receive your certificates properly, because you have to register as well as fill in the feedback form for your certificates. We will be cross checking that. And thank you for joining in. We hope that you had a pleasurable session. And if you have any doubts regarding resources which were used today or anything else, you can send us a DM on Instagram at MLSASRM. The link that you see on the screen, tinyurl.com slash what the web, is the feedback form link. Repeating again so that there are no queries. If it is optional to fill in your GitHub link right there to the project that you've made today, but if you do not add your GitHub link, you will not be eligible to win any of the rewards that we showcased today. And there are 24 hours for you to fill in the link. So if you want to add a certain quirk to your page, apart from whatever has been taught today, you can do that as well. I think we'll wrap it up with that. Thank you for joining in, everybody. Thank you, Akhilesh sir, again from the entire team of MLSSRM and on behalf of our audience. It was truly an amazing session. And we'll take your leave, everyone. You can always rewind the session if you felt that you missed out at any point. The video will be uploaded for your reference, but the feedback form link will be closed within 24 hours. So please make sure you fill it up. Thank you again. Bye bye.
Thanks, Kaisha.